What's up, everybody? Welcome back to A Cast for Crows, our Game of Thrones-inspired podcast here on Deadscreen.net. We are back this week to discuss Season 7, Episode 2, titled Stormborn. I am Joe.
I'm Alexa.
I'm Drew, technically.
I guess we can open up with the first scene of the episode this week, which was a pretty interesting conversation between Daenerys and several of her new allies, kind of discussing strategy for the upcoming war, and also questioning Varys' loyalty. And first off, just kind of in general, what did you guys make of that conversation?
I think it's valid because Varys literally goes from person to person depending on who he feels won't screw him.
I mean, it's interesting because I feel like some of those guys don't get enough shit for that. And it was kind of refreshing to hear somebody call him out on it. But, like, I trusted everything that he said. It's not, like, he's different than Littlefinger. I feel like him and Littlefinger are kind of in the same realm of the same kind of character, but, like, I trust him more. Like, I feel like his intentions are always normal.
Yeah, I think... Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think Varys is, like, you believe him when he says all he really wants is peace, and, like, he was honest with Daenerys. Like, he doesn't have loyalty to any one person, he just has loyalty to the people.
Right, and if he trusts her to be the best option for the people, he's going to do whatever.
I just kind of wonder why this conversation didn't happen last season, like before Varys went all the way to Dorne and got her a huge chunk of her army. Because, like, I expected this conversation to happen. I'm just like, well, okay, it didn't happen, and now Varys proved his loyalty, and I'm like, she's calling him out now of all times.
I think it's more like she just really needed him, like, and his like the armies that he brought and stuff. So I think she just waited until she already had that before she questioned his loyalty. But I like that also when she was like, look, if I'm not being good to the people, call me out on it. Like,
right.
Don't just let me be my dad.
Yeah, I feel like that was an important part of her character.
It sets her apart from most Targaryens, I think.
I think that's very much part of her character, too, is that she has seemed to be very actively, like, for the people of where she's going. Like, she's not about the, like, top... She's the Bernie Sanders of Westeros. She's not for the top 1% just screwing over everyone else.
And staying in Dragonstone, a certain Melisandre has also turned up, and she told Daenerys about the Azor Ahai prophecy, as well as mentioning Jon Snow up north, and of course, as we predicted, suggesting the alliance there. And I guess first off, as far as Azor Ahai, what did you guys make of the interpretation now that we have it confirmed that, like, it could refer to a man or a woman?
I mean, I just think she's full of shit. Like, I feel like that's what it boils down to. Like, we saw her give birth to the ghost demon thing, but other than that, has she done anything?
She brought back Jon.
She got Stannis killed.
Like, but I feel like nothing she actually says is... I feel like she can do stuff, but I feel like nothing that she, like, says is going to come true actually ever comes true.
Well, see, I think also... Okay, so it's complicated because she's not, like, getting a vision that's clearly like, hey, Melisandre, this is Azor Ahai. It's like she gets, like, little images, and right now the one that she's seeing most prevalently, and she's kind of apparently always seen, is something with snow, which is making her indicate that it's Jon Snow. So, I mean, you have to take everything she says with a grain of salt because, I mean, she's just, like, you know, using what she's getting. But I think, I don't know, I think it's kind of meant to kind of, because I feel like the people who people think that Azor Ahai could be most prevalently are Jon and Daenerys, but I think the fact that it was a prince that was promised has kind of thrown people off about it potentially being Daenerys, so I think it's just kind of making it more ambiguous for people. But I think Melisandre kind of made it clear that she still thinks that Jon is Azor Ahai, but that Daenerys has a separate role to play. and that it's still equally as important.
How much have they talked about Azor Ahai? I feel like I only know about this from talking to you guys. Like, I know they've touched on it in the show, but it's been like...
Yeah, they've touched on it, and I think they focus more on the Prince That Was Promised prophecy, which a lot of people think are the same thing, but they're separate prophecies, or they're like separate things. It's just that people kind of assume that the Prince That Was Promised is the reincarnation of Azor Ahai, but it's never been like fully stated that Azor Ahai equals the Prince That Was Promised.
Huh.
So
it's confusing to me, average viewer.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's meant to be, and that's why like people just kind of don't always trust Melisandre, because we don't really know too much about these prophecies.
Well, I don't trust her because nothing she
I know
says
she's
is,
I
feel like she's just full of it.
But I think it's also just like she's not getting an image of like Jon Snow with a flaming sword like killing all the White Walkers. She's getting little pictures. She's getting what we got kind of from what we saw. Was it the episode before? Yeah, the episode before with the Hound, where he kind of got like these weird little unclear things that like could mean something, but it's not like, hey, this is what's going to happen right now.
Right.
And I think hers are even less clear than the Hound's, because the Hound seemed to have like a fairly clear image. I think with her, it's just seeing Snow, and it's like, yeah, Jon Snow.
I just don't trust anything that comes out of her mouth. And for whatever reason, I feel like her as a character, she's just not all that interesting anymore. Like before, I feel like she was really mysterious and kind of like you felt like she knew something. And I feel like now she's just kind of there. Like, does that make sense? Like I don't think she knows anything for real. And I don't feel like there's an actual plan behind anything she's doing. She's just kind of sad.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's safe to say she's a little downtrodden because she's cost lives unnecessarily.
And burned a little girl at the stake.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
Oh.
But I mean, like, she's still like a red priestess. I still do believe that she has powers. We've seen it.
Yeah, but yes.
I mean, her imagery, like what she's getting doesn't necessarily mean that it's exactly the case, because her visions are so vague. So it's not like we have to just be like, yeah, Melisandre says that Jon's Azor Ahai.
Right.
It's just like what the like reigning theory is and what we have from her. But doesn't necessarily mean that Jon's Azor Ahai, and I think that's why they made the distinction, clarifying that it's not just the prince that was promised, it could be the princess that was promised, because we had another red priestess previously suggesting that Daenerys was the princess that was promised.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's kind of clarifying that for people. But yeah, I don't think she thinks that Daenerys is the prince that was promised. I think she just thinks that Daenerys is a separate role, which I don't know how this is going to play out, but based on what I'm thinking, based on what we know from Azor Ahai, he had to kill his beloved to make this like sword, like bring her light up. So I don't know if that's what she's indicating that Daenerys' role might have to be. I don't know if there's going to be some kind of romance between them. It's the Middle Ages, so it totally could be. But I don't know. I don't know if that's what she was indicating when she said that she had a role to play. Or if she just meant, you have dragons. So it could really be anything.
I don't know. Like, I don't know enough about the Azor Ahai stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I know everything I know about it has come from this. I feel like everything in the show has just been like little tidbits, and I feel like I learned the majority.
I mean, they're little things that,
you guys.
like, the things we've said have all been mentioned in the show at some point or another, but they're told as like passing legends and stuff. So we don't really put a lot of like focus on them. But I'm not spoiling anything by saying these things. They're all mentioned.
It was interesting because immediately following that scene was the scene with Sansa and Jon, where he got the raven, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I am very interested to see what happens when Jon goes, if like, because he's going for one reason and she thinks he's coming for another reason. Like she wants him to bend the knee and join her, and like they can
loyalty.
go. Yeah. What?
Yeah, like basically pledge his loyalty to her,
and like then she can go take the Iron Throne back, and everybody's happy. And he's gonna show up, basically be like, I don't care about any of this because all this other stuff. Does Danny know anything about the White Walkers? Like,
no, I don't think so.
This is all gonna be brand new news. So like,
well, the thing is also with the White Walkers, there's still very few people who believe it's true, because a lot of people just kind of view the White Walkers as some legend that's been told over time. So even if someone were to tell her, yeah, you know, White Walkers, I don't think she would necessarily believe it. She'd probably be like, you're fucking high.
Right. So that's why I'm really interested to see how that scene's going to go. Hopefully next week, where he shows up and he's like, hey, I don't care about any of this that you're talking about right now. We have an actual problem and you got a bunch of shit under your castle that I need. So let's figure this out. And I feel like she could either, you know, be like, okay, for whatever reason, I trust this guy. It makes sense, because she could, you know, with Tyrion there, he could explain it all. And I feel like she'd be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Or she could be like, what are you doing, dude? Like, I don't care about that at all. Like, bend your knee or I'm going to shoot you with an arrow or burn you with a dragon or something. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm very interested to see what happens from that.
See, I think that it's going to go amicably, because Jon doesn't want the Iron Throne. Like, he might be king of the North, but he's like, I don't, that doesn't matter to me. He's never had like an aspiration to be this king like a lot of the people we've seen. So I don't see him kind of being like, nah, man, I'm not going to bend my knee. Like, I don't see him being like...
Right. No, that's not what I mean. I mean him not doing it because, like, he's like,
yes, of course, it's for different reasoning.
There's a bigger problem here.
Yeah, you know, I could see that happening too, but I just don't see them being like, I don't see her being like, yo, Drogon, kill this traitor. Like, I don't see that.
Right.
I just kind of see it going like, hey, you got what I need. Like, I'll bend my knee to you. Like, give me the freaking dragon stone. Like, when this shit happens, can you, like, promise your dragons and we're cool? And, like, yeah. I'll do what you want. You give me, like, a very quid pro quo situation there. I can see it happening. I don't see him, you know, like, fighting for her or anything, where I don't know if that's what she's expecting from him, to, like, have his armies join her.
Exactly. That's it. That's what I don't know, is what exactly all that.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what they, like, I know what he wants from her, but I'm not entirely sure what she wants from him.
Correct. I'm on the same page.
So, like, it could also go in a way where it's like, hey, like, I'll give you some of my people. That's fine. Just give me this shit and, like, promise me, like, when the great winter comes and they pass the wall, like, you are on my team here. Like, I could see it going like that, too. So I don't really know what exactly is going to happen there, but I don't see it being some kind of bitter, like, fight between them.
Yeah, I think it'll go pretty smoothly, especially with Tyrion's help, because he knows them both quite well.
Because he's that common link.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that Jon will explain the problem with the White Walkers to her, and I imagine what'll happen is they'll strike a deal where she'll agree to give him the dragon glass if he supplies her with 1, loyalty, and 2, some of his northern men.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I would expect she'll just be like, let me take care of business here, get this crap in King's Landing wrapped up, and then we'll go north.
Yeah,
and
that's exactly what I think. That's exactly what I was trying to say, but you condensed it in a much simpler way.
Let's see.
But we did also just, you know, speaking of Daenerys and Jon and all that, we saw the whole Sansa and Jon dispute yet again, because they can't seem to find the time to do this separately.
Or like having normal conversation.
Yeah.
Like adults.
Yeah. I think what tends to happen is that Sansa is weary of what Jon wants, but like jumps to conclusions before he gets his point across. You know, like he was gonna be like, yo, like I'll leave for a bit, and she's like, no, but you can't leave, like you can't leave it alone. And he's like, wait, and she's like, no, you can't leave. And he's like, wait, I'm leaving you in charge.
Oh, okay, see ya. Don't
Yeah,
die.
like
Oh, that's
why
fine.
not just
Yeah, and
say
then
that
just, like,
to
a
her
little
behind closed doors 5 minutes
these
ahead
are
of time?
things that like I don't know why they're waiting till the last minute to say in front of all these people, and now everyone's gonna start being like, should we even like be trusting the Starks if they can't even trust one another? Like, it's definitely not a good look for them. And yeah, these are definitely things that need to happen behind closed doors, and Littlefinger's just like living for it.
Yeah, but I feel like again, we talked about it last week, but I feel like just everybody has it figured out at this point. And major shout out to Jon for that choke slam on Littlefinger down in the
Good
crypts.
times.
Yeah, for sure. It reinforces my belief that he will die at some point this season.
Yeah, I don't think Littlefinger's making it much longer. I think Jon is ready to kill him.
Yeah, I feel like that's something we covered last week, was just like, I feel like he's run his course as a character. Like, I don't worry about anything he's doing. Like,
Yeah.
I hope I'm wrong. Like, I hope somehow he surprises us with something, because when he feels like he holds all the cards, like, I feel like that's one of the most interesting things, in the show. But right now, I just feel like he's just kind of there being annoying.
See, the thing is, I think for the first time, we're seeing him not holding all the cards, because Sansa is clearly his weakness.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, he's not, like, Sansa has him wrapped around her Littlefinger. Jon's like, if you touch my sister, I will destroy you. And it's like, he's not really in control right now. And I think it's a weird look for Littlefinger, because we're used to him being this, like, little snake who has his fingers and everything, and like, he thinks he's doing stuff, and he thinks that this, like, fight between Sansa and Jon is serious, but at the end of the day, like, it always comes back to this, like, mutual respect that they have for one another. Like, he's like, I'm leaving it to you, and she's like, oh, so, like, you trust me. And so, like, he thinks that there's this, like, I feel like he thinks that there's, like, this storm brewing, but at the end of the day, they're, like, familial ties, like, keep it from happening.
I have to wonder, though, staying on Littlefinger for a moment, like, we've speculated that eventually it will come out about how he betrayed Ned back in season 1, but how would the Stark kids find out about that?
Who knows?
I
mean, does anybody even know?
I don't know.
I could see it going, which, like, I really don't know if this is gonna be like how it is, because I think it'd be stupid to have a flashback of something we've already seen, but like maybe Bran has a vision of it or something, and now that he's like not too far away from them, maybe he could kind of be like, yo, don't trust this guy, he totally got her dad killed. Or perhaps even when Jon goes to see Daenerys, doesn't Varys know that he betrayed him?
Varys knows like everything, so that's possible.
So it's possible that Varys would kind of mention it, because Jon might kind of say like, hey, we have Littlefinger, and like Varys would be like, yo, no.
Oh.
I like that. I like that a lot.
I'm gonna go with that.
Just came up to me right now. I feel so smart for coming up with that one.
We know it anyway, but that would confirm that Varys is like on a whole other level to Littlefinger at this point.
I feel like I've felt like that for a while now. I have too. At the beginning of the series,
there are differences. And
at the beginning of the series, I felt like it was kind of flipped, but I feel like it's that like hierarchy is kind of flipped a bit. Like, I feel like Varys knows literally everything.
He kind of does for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
It's like uncanny.
So, are we getting all of the living Starks in Winterfell?
Oh, you may have just jinxed it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Someone's gonna die.
Why? Who? Who'd I jinx?
I don't know.
I don't know.
We would all. That's what we all want, but it's Game of Thrones, so you never know. When did they ever give us what we want?
Yeah, I could see, and I really don't want to say this, but I could see it not working out for Arya.
I was thinking that too.
I feel like she's so safe, though. Like, I'm not worried about her at all.
But I think they want you to feel that way about her.
I'm not worried about her in the immediate future, but I'm worried about her.
I think she's on a dangerous path, and I don't think she's going to be the one to kill Cersei, and I think that's going to get her killed.
I agree.
I mean, I could see that. I just feel like right now, like when she was sitting with all the Lannister bannermen
Well,
or
I don't
whatever,
mean that.
like I was
They
like,
didn't give it that.
whatever.
But I don't know. I just, like when we get too happy with the Starks, it's kind of an indication that something's
That's
going to
true.
happen. And when we
Maybe-
get too happy with anything, it kind of seems that way, which is how a
Right.
perfect segue into the next topic. Yeah, so Grey Worm and Missandei had a
So-
nice little romantic scene, and they finally, stop with the sexual tension and just finally admit that they have feelings for one another.
I have a question. Like what in the books?
Andy will tell you about the birds and the bees later.
You don't always need something to do things.
In the books, are these like side characters, or do they get this much focus?
Does Grey Worm even exist in the books?
Yep, they both exist.
Okay.
Because like,
Oh boy,
I frankly don't care about either one of those characters.
Oh, I was so rooting
Ouch.
for their love story.
oh, geez, it slipped my mind. But Miss Sunday is like
Isn't she
11
like
or 12
10?
years old in
Yeah,
the book.
I just realized that. Yeah, she's like a kid.
no, Andy. She doesn't have a relationship with Grey Worm in the books. Let
Oh.
me make that clear. But yeah, she's
Yeah, I think
she's
that was
like 10,
definitely
she's
show
like 10 or
fodder.
11 years
Yeah.
old or something.
Their storyline just seems a little out of place to me, and like I feel like they're
I
setting
think it's
it.
forced.
Yeah, I feel like they're setting it
Kind
up.
of like, like these characters, we've grown to love them, let's give them love.
Yeah.
But I think it's kind of been something that has been progressing for a little bit. I think we've seen a little bit of tension between them sexually. But yeah, I mean, I think it was just like a nice scene, but I also don't think it's a good thing.
Well, yeah,
I mean, I
because
think
now we're
it's a
happy
good
for 'em.
thing.
You can't be happy
I
for
think-
anybody.
Yeah, the show doesn't believe in happy endings, and I think this like sexual moment would be a perfect goodbye for them. And I think that's kind of why
Let's
it
do it.
happened, because it was like, I very well may die.
Let's do it.
Let's do this.
Mhm.
And I think that's exactly what's going to happen, which is why he's on my die list this season.
Mm.
See, I felt like it was a pretty important scene just because of how we've watched Grey Worm grow. Because you have to remember, as an Unsullied, like not only are they
Yeah, I
obviously
think it was an
castrated, but,
important scene.
like they're not only castrated, but they're stripped of all emotion. They're basically the equivalent of robots,
Yeah, and
And
involves
so I
sexuality
think-
as well.
Yeah, exactly. And it was very important for this scene to happen because it meant that Grey Worm like made the full breakthrough in more ways than one. But now he understands, like he's fully tapped into his emotions now, and he understands what it means to like leave a loved one behind when you go to war.
Yeah.
Whereas before, he was just a fighter.
Yeah, his whole little
mindless
speech
fighter.
was where he was like, I've never been afraid before. Like, I don't have fears. You're making me afraid. And like, I don't want to like have this be like painful for you if and when I die.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you guys. It probably means he's going to die soon because something good just happened to him.
How though? Like he's not in any immediate danger, is he?
Going to be fighting.
Yeah, Daenerys is sending him off to
Oh yeah, that's right.
Casterly Rock.
I forgot.
See, and I think they basically were like, yeah, this is happening. Because he literally was like, if I die.
Right. Good call.
Yeah, it was pretty much a foreshadowing, I think.
Yeah.
So my favorite scenes this season have been of Sam. Like his whole situation has been like, I don't know, it's just been fun. I like watching him.
Yeah, I don't know if that scene was necessarily my favorite because I was trying not to puke the entire time.
Oh no, it was really gross. But like I think his scenes are interesting, but I also really like that scene because anything that makes me like feel like I'm not sitting on my couch watching TV with my legs up are like scenes that I really like. Like that scene, like really like you felt it all the way like through your body and like
And
Yeah.
the pus.
yeah, and
You're like,
watching Jorah like because like he's a character that has been really strong, like both, you know, physically and emotionally. He's had a little couple breakdowns, but like seeing him in that much pain, I felt really sent home how painful ripping off like these massive scabs or, you know, looking things. I don't know. I just thought that scene was good. It really made me uncomfortable, but I thought it was well done.
I think it was also a major testament to just like Sam's character, because he's risking his life to maybe save someone.
Right.
Like he doesn't know that this is gonna fix anything,
Mm-hmm.
and like he very well may get grayscale from this.
Yeah. Well, I forgot about this in the first episode. Didn't it seem like he almost touched him?
Yeah. I don't think he actually touched him, but he got very close, and I think that's why everyone kind of jumped too, because like not only was it like a, hey, look, and like everyone's like, what the, but like he did get very close to touching him, and I think that's part of just like the whole fear. But I think they're trying to make you think that, you know, he might get it. I personally am trying to be an optimist here, and I think that this isn't going to all be for nothing. I think Sam's going to find a way to fix this, and he's going to do it unscathed. But that also might be very naive of me because it's a Game of Thrones.
You know what's interesting that this shows about Sam too is that he's kind of like he's similar to Qyburn, but he's almost the total opposite too, because like both of them go against the grain. Like they're maesters who they kind of reject the natural order. They like to experiment, take risks, but whereas obviously Qyburn's doing it for Cersei's wishes for power.
They're both kind of mad scientists.
Sam's doing it for good reasons.
Yeah, it's interesting. But yeah.
But yeah, how about the sieg into
Sieg?
From Jorah's pus into the chowder being eaten? Was that not the
that
most
was a fun little
disgusting thing?
segue, not sieg.
Leave me alone.
I liked it. I thought the dumplings looked good. The chowder, the dumplings, whatever it was.
They're doing this a lot with Sam, because everything he's doing is so disgusting. But they're doing this little like disgusting stuff, food, with him. It's like this weird little like. I mean, this time it wasn't a montage, but it's like these little segues where it's like,
right.
You want me puking? Now this looks good, and you're like, but it looks good, but it also just reminds me of pus. So. Like, and it's totally screwing with how you're supposed to feel.
Of course, the good news about seeing Chowder is we got to go back to an Arya scene, and we got the return of Hot Pie. Everyone's favorite character ever. And Arya finally finds out that the Starks took back Winterfell.
So, her current character that's like very confident and on this like mission has such a weird personality. Like it seems very different. Like that whole conversation she was having with them. Like it doesn't. It almost doesn't even feel like her. Like it almost feels like she's a different person.
Like a shell of her former self.
Yeah.
I think she's kind of. Okay, so I think the House of Black and White really like squished her ideals. And so I think she's a little more jaded about everything. And I think it's taken so long that she's kind of lost sight of why she's doing what she's doing. So I think I'm just gonna kind of talk about something that I wrote down already. But I think it was really interesting to see that scene. And then pretty soon after, if not immediately after, we saw the whole Nymeria scene. A lot of people were really excited about that, and like I guess some people thought that Nymeria was going to go back to her, because we did see Nymeria in the preview. But I think it's kind of interesting. That whole scene I think was like very like metaphorical to like Arya's journey, because I mean I think it would have been easy for Nymeria to go back to Arya, and I think she even considered it, and it's kind of to me expressing Arya's mission where she really wants to do it. But like at the end of the day, I think her family's the most important thing to her, no matter how much she's tried to kill that human side of her. The second she hears her family is in Winterfell and they've taken it back, like she doesn't even think about it. Like she has like a little hesitation where she's like, ooh, north or south, north or south. And then she's like, nah, man, like I have to go see my family. So I think that scene was kind of like very interesting, representative of Arya's own struggle with whether or not she should continue on her journey and do what she wants, or if she should stay with her family, and in which case, going with the whole Stark metaphor, stay with her pack.
So, in a perfect world where she's safe, she goes back to Winterfell and then does what? Like, does she abandon her little mission?
I don't think she's going to abandon her mission, but I think it's been so long since she's been with her family that the fact that they're all back in power and alive and well and they're not too far off from her kind of was like, I need to see them.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if it's going to have any impact on her mission or not. I don't know if Sansa's going to try to talk her out of this madness or what. But I think it was just a really interesting, like, moment and representation of her internal struggle.
I'll be curious to see if she gets back to Winterfell, what will her reactions even be? What will, if whoever the other Starks are that are there, what will their reactions be to her? Because they're all like completely different people now. And what I took from the
Well, don't they all think she died?
That's what I was going to ask, is what do they think happened to her?
I think Sansa got word at some point that Arya was alive. I don't know about the rest of them, but
Wait, who got word?
Sansa did.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but see, like,
I think she did at some point.
I kind of think that they just kind of, and this is sound really bad, but I think they just kind of forgot. Like, not forgot about her, but like they haven't really thought about her in a while. No one's made an effort to try to find her. Like, I don't know what they think happened to her, or like if they thought maybe she was alive, but maybe over time she's died. Like, I don't think they're aware that she's like alive and well.
Well, what I took from the Nymeria scene was that, like, it was clear Nymeria acknowledged her, recognized her, but also, not only as they grew older, they grew apart.
Mm-hmm.
And like Nymeria has her own family now too, and she can't just leave that to, go with Arya and be Arya's pet again. And it kind of made me think about how, for us in real life, like, especially as you get older, like, how many times do you try and like reach back and find something from your childhood that you loved? And like, even if you get a hold of it, it doesn't quite give you the same sense of whether it's emotion or excitement, whatever. You never get quite the same feeling that you did as a kid. And I kind of thought of that during that scene, because like Nymeria now really represents Arya's childhood because she was a pet for Arya.
Yeah.
But now they're both they're pretty much fully grown. Arya's nearly an adult now. And but yeah, that's what I took from this scene. I think Nymeria will show up again at some point.
Yeah. So there's also this thing. So I didn't really remember this because season 1 was a long time ago from when I watched it. But I read that "That's Not You" wasn't saying that like she didn't think that it was Nymeria, but it's a like kind of like a little Easter egg in reference to season 1 where Ned is saying like, you need to like, you're gonna be like a nice little lady and you're gonna marry like some nobleman, and she literally said, "That's not me."
Yeah.
And so saying that "that's not you," I think was also acknowledging like the wildness in her and how she couldn't go back to being domesticated. And I think that's also representing like the wildness in Arya and like how far she's gone from who she was meant to be. But I also look into things very metaphorically, so that would just be me.
They put that on that like the recap thing at the end, where like they talk to the producers or the showrunners.
Oh, see, I don't watch those.
Yeah, it was like that was straight from it. It was one of the guys was like, yeah, this was a little callback to season 1, and then they showed like little tiny baby Arya talking to Sean Bean about it.
Well, there have been very many callbacks to season 1 this past season. I've noticed just a bunch of different ones like throughout. So
it'll be fun in a handful of years when the whole series has been over to like plow through these episodes in like a couple weeks to sort of catch on to those things.
Yeah, well, I'm like semi seeing it now because my dad started watching it, and one of my friends was watching it. She's the one who called earlier asking how to work the HBO. But yeah, so it's interesting seeing these little things, and I picked up on some of the little Easter eggs these past couple episodes just because I've been seeing former things, and like literally like some things are word for word.
And I know we've mostly talked about like conversations in this episode and like potential next moves, but we did finally launch into our first real war scene of the season when a certain pirate named Euron, Captain Jack Sparrow Greyjoy, ambushed Yara and, Yara's fleet that was carrying all of the Dornish folks on them and absolutely destroyed them. And first off, all I want to say is let's hail Euron Greyjoy for a moment for ridding us of 2 sand snakes. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Euron. But what did you guys make of the scene as a whole? And what do you think Euron's going to do with his hostages?
For this, this was like my least favorite battle scene in all of Game of Thrones.
I agree.
And I don't know why. Like they did this weird thing where they like sped up all the action by like just a little bit, and it made it all look all cartoony and weird. Like
I did not give like trying to be Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, like
yes,
like that scene where the ship like chopped down on the ship and he like rode it down. Like I was like immediately I was so out of it. I was like,
that to me was just like I was just expecting to see like Barbossa from the first movie and like skeleton under the moonlight, like with like the little Jack the monkey and the little
something about the way they filmed and edited and like something about that scene.
We're just trying really hard to push the fact that Euron is like some pirate lord,
but like,
and, like
I feel like I should have cared about everything that happened, and I didn't care one bit. Like it's not that we had a lot of value in those sand snakes to begin with, so seeing them drop wasn't a big deal. I felt like they dropped a little too quickly for how badass they were supposed to be.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, that whole like, I just wasn't feeling any of it.
Yeah.
See, I think you're right about the camera work in particular. That's what annoyed me too. It's like it cut one. It was also really dark too, and like they cut from one scene to the next so quickly that I couldn't tell who was fighting who and like who was dying. And I'm like, what's going on here? And it wasn't until the very last scene where Yara jumps Theon or Euron, and until I could finally figure out who was who.
I straight up thought she was killed like right away, and then I was like, wait, what?
Well, that's what Lauren was asking me. She was like, how do they know who's who? They all look the same.
Yeah, that one it was just too hard to keep up with everything. I'm not sure why they did it like that.
I don't know. Like, his character's super weird to me because, like, his character this season versus his character last season seem like 2 entirely different people.
Yeah, they totally gave him, like, this weird super pirate thing.
Yeah, like, last season, he just seemed kind of like an angry, serious guy who was just going to do whatever he needed to do. And this season, he's this weird, crazy, insane pirate man. Like, it just doesn't, the whole thing about like, the laugh when he realized what was happening with him going back into Reek and all that stuff. Like, it was just like, it's just very different from the character that we learned about the previous season. I feel like he's too crazy and too all over the place.
Yeah, he's definitely insane.
Also, he has a dumb boat that chomps on other boats. It's probably called the boat
was like, I was just expecting like literally some like sea creature just like because it just
I was expecting him to like do the thing where like he cuts the rope and it like pulls him up to the top of the sail and then he slides down the sail with a sword in it or something like that. I was not about it. Like I would rather, like, all the stuff that happened itself was interesting. Watching it happen was not interesting.
I just, like, also, it was just, like, and maybe it's to, like, represent, like, the whole, like, pirate savagery, but, like, it was just, like, grossly bloody for characters we didn't give a crap about.
Right.
Like, I could see it where it's supposed to be gut-wrenching when you care about someone, but it's, like, which I didn't even realize, but I've seen articles where it's like, people are cutting out people's tongues. And it's like, I don't care about these people, so why do I have to see their tongues get ripped out? Like, it doesn't have an emotional impact on me other than just, like, pure disgust.
Right. And, like, I wasn't worried about Yara at all. Like, if
I don't think she's.
if he killed her there, it was just one of those things. Like, okay, I guess that's what happened.
But see, I think maybe it's just like an off-camera death, but I don't think that she's gonna like die. Like, I think like what we have written here is that kind of like Yara, Arya, and that other sand snake we don't give a crap about are Cersei's gifts.
Which makes what he was saying to us non-people who don't know about all the special stuff that you guys were talking about last, like, that's a good gift. Hey, I fucked up half this giant fleet. Here's a bunch of them. Do whatever you want. Like, that's
which is why I'm
gift.
saying I don't think that what I said last time was a spoiler, because it very well may never even happen. But whatever.
I don't know. I thought that I thought what happened to Theon was the most interesting part of that. I don't think it was interesting to watch at all. Like, it seemed really dumb to me. But the fact that that's what happened, you know, him sort of watching all the other pirates, you know, one guy was getting his ear cut off, the other guy, you know, somebody was getting his toothpick pulled out or his tongue cut off, whatever it was. Yeah. Seeing him sort of go back to that place, you know, that reek state that we saw him for a couple seasons. I feel like that's not something that I really expected to happen to him. Like, that just, I don't think was in my brain as like a path that he would go on, was sort of have that fall back to that state.
Yeah, I think because we've come so far with him and we've seen him stand up to Ramsay, I think no one expected him to regress, but it totally made sense.
Right.
He was traumatized. It makes sense that he sees someone who's as vicious as this person, and his gut reaction isn't to fight, it's to fly. Like, you know, the fight or flight.
And I think that helps. From what Joe, you were saying that that Euron's supposed to be worse than Ramsay was. Like, I feel like this is a wake-up call to maybe people who weren't thinking on that line of thinking yet, because we hadn't seen anything about it. You know, the fact that he was able to make Theon go back to that state, you know, for the average viewer should make us realize that maybe Euron is kind of that crazy and that evil.
Yeah, he's like, you can tell he's sadistic, and, you know, the fact that he laughed at the fact that Theon just jumped ship kind of just shows how he's just like, yeah, I totally screwed him up mentally. This is hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely shows in like a sadistic nature. I am kind of disappointed in the way it turned out, because Theon was on my death pool sacrificing himself for Yara.
Yeah, but I mean, there's
so that's what I said. Let's leave this for the podcast. And the little note is whether or not this is his, you know, because I think his character has run its course. I think the fact that he's regressing is kind of just like, it's going to be like this endless loop of him like becoming Theon and then going back to Reek and then becoming Theon and going back to Reek. I think that storyline's just done. So I could totally see him, if Yara, you know, doesn't end up just dead, him sacrificing himself for her or for someone else in order to redeem himself.
Yeah, I agree with you. I could see either one of those happening. And he has had Game of Thrones, I know we've said this a million times in the podcast, but like, they've done this good job of taking a character and like taking you on this roller coaster of how you feel about him. Like, you liked Theon at first, then you hated him, and then you felt bad for him, and now you like him, and some people might not like him. Like,
a lot of people, from what I've seen, had a very negative reaction to him jumping ship. I could understand why people would be upset, because, you know, we thought he came through all this like character development, and we see that it takes one crazy guy to bring him back to who he used to be. Mm-hmm. And I see a lot of people have been very upset with this character development, and they just, which you can tell is coming from someone who has no understanding of how PTSD works.
Right.
Because his reaction made absolute sense.
And like you were saying before, I don't think we can see him go back and forth, you know, on those two sort of personality planes. Like, I think he, as a character, has to come to some sort of head sometime soon.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, because the thing is, this is how, I was just having this discussion with my friend. We started the show and we're like, no one's going to be worse than Joffrey. Or no one's going to be worse than Viserys. No one's going to be worse than Joffrey. No one's going to be worse than Ramsay. no, it's going to be where, like, once Euron eventually, he's going to eventually die. It just makes sense. His character, I don't think his character's making it. So who's going to be the next big bad? And is Theon just going to be in this endless loop where every single time this horrible person comes, like, it just doesn't make sense for his character to keep going on this endless loop of Theon Reek.
See, I read so many discussions about Theon in that situation, like right after the episode. There were so many different opinions. And I think I'm in the minority in thinking this. Like, I agree with everything you guys have said, but I also got a different take from it, which is that when Theon chose to flee, I feel like he also could have done it with the hope of saving Yara's life, because if he charges Euron right there, like say he gets over the PTSD for that moment, charges Euron's gonna slit Yara's throat right there, and then he'll battle and probably kill Theon too. But by jumping ship, he at least gives Yara a chance and probably assumes that she'll be taken as a hostage to Cersei, and at least she has like maybe a 10% chance of living, rather than if Theon just charges and say, no, don't kill my sister, Euron's going to slit the throat right there.
Yeah, I think it was very clear that that's exactly what Euron intended to do if Theon had charged at him. I think, that was just something where Theon was like, this is going to get us both killed and nothing's going to come from it. So I could see that side as well. I definitely did see that when I first saw the episode, and I totally was disregarding the PTSD. I was just like, this dude's being a weenie. But I could see where he's also doing this in an attempt to save them both, and hopefully, because he would have totally slit her throat and then killed him. It wouldn't have amounted to anything.
It was like a lose-lose situation, but at least by jumping, he gives them a very slim chance. And I do agree with you guys. I think he'll find some way to make up for it. I kind of wonder if he'll wash up near Dragonstone again and run into Jon again, and that could be a pretty tense reunion.
Yeah, I honestly don't know where he's going to end up. People have been joking that Gendry's going to pick him up. I don't think Gendry's still Rowan.
Gosh.
But
such a dumb thing.
Well, I can say that he was seen at the premiere, so he's probably going to be in this season. But I don't think he's going to still be Rowan.
That is spoilers, Alexa.
That is something that the internet has said.
It's still spoilers. Internet spoils everything.
I don't know how you missed that, because it was all over
at
the
these
internet.
things. I avoid them. I don't read anything about any Game of Thrones stuff.
Okay. Well,
okay, so spoiler-free then. Let's just go in general then, like a quick preview of what you guys think we might see next week.
John's going to show up, and they're going to talk to Dany, and she's going to say something, and he'll say something, and then he'll either get the Dragonstone or not. I don't know.
So well put.
No, that's
eloquent as always.
Yes.
Alexa, any thoughts?
I mean, same.
So,
I don't really know what else is gonna happen aside from that. I mean, maybe Arya shows up in Winterfell. I don't know how that's gonna go down.
There's something interesting about this season that feels different than other seasons, because I feel like each season so far has had this big picture that the White Walkers are coming, Dany's trying to get back to the Iron Throne, Cersei's trying to get on the throne, and then also a bunch of other stuff happens. So I feel like there's these big set pieces, and then there's like every season we get a couple of like little story arcs. The weird thing about this season is that I feel like we don't have those little story arcs. I feel like every line we're following is like 100% moving that final end game forward.
Yeah,
whereas
I mean, it's because
normally
the show's ending soon.
Right, but I like these episodes have a different feel to them to me. And it's because every little bit I feel like we're getting is pushing that final goal forward, where before it was like you'd watch an episode and there'd be bits of, this main season's little storyline and overall series storyline. But I feel like everything is overall series storyline right now. So the series as a whole has a different feel to it this season.
See, the way I see it is I think it's like even more so coming to an end, because I think they're wrapping up the Westeros shit this season, and next season's going to be all White Walker stuff.
Right, I could absolutely see that.
So that's why I think it's like going extremely fast to make sure we wrap up all our loose ends. And that's why we're seeing these like things where it's not a lot of like Downton Abbey of Thrones, because we're seeing everything coming to an end and everything starts to happen, and like we don't have time to just like sit and chat, not to mention we have a shorter season. Like I think it's just trying to like cut all the filler.
Yeah, I feel like we're starting out with mostly talking, and I'm hoping we'll segue slowly into more and more action with each passing week.
I just want to see those White Walkers get over that wall, get around the wall, start messing everything up.
Yeah, have you noticed the opening credits, what the wall looks like?
No?
No.
You guys haven't seen it?
No. I mean, I've seen it. I have not
No, but have you not noticed that the river is completely frozen?
Mm-mm.
The river's frozen. Look at it next time. The river's frozen. Because I just noticed, because I mean, I had seen something like that online, but I was watching the first season and there's like a giant river next to the wall. It's totally frozen now, so that's basically their way of like, I'm just gonna...
Huh.
So maybe they'll get around the wall next week or go through it or something.
I mean, because I think that's what the Hound was saying in his vision. It's kind of like, I think there's like a mountain by there or something. But yeah, I mean, like there's basically this, he said something about them going like around the wall. And I think that's how that's going to happen. You gotta pay attention to the opening credits. It's very revelatory.
I guess we'll have to do that next week. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, you can follow us on Twitter at DeadScreenNet and at A Cast for Crows. And
Valar Morghulis, everyone.
We'll see you next week.